What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? It's your man, Pastor Ferguson. We back up and live for the Safe House podcast. What is good with all of you? Let's check this out. We are hearing ourselves in all kind of ways.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening, Mitchell? What's going on, man?
Hey, man, we still in recovery mode, aren't we?
Man, listen, annual conference about kicked us,
Yeah.
man. But it was a good time. And for real, it was a good time in so many ways, more than one. And I'm just glad that we back in the number, doing what we do best on the Safe House podcast here at Clare United Methodist Church. As always, if you are online with us live, I need you to do me a favor. Make sure that you are sharing. Share. Share the link. Share the link. If you're on Facebook, hit that share button. If you're on YouTube, hit the share button. You know, let people know about what it is that you're looking at and what you're watching and what you're gathering. Also, if you're watching us and it's on replay, do the same thing because people need to hear what they need to hear. If you, for some reason, are catching a replay, you can go to clareumc.com and you can go to any podcast platform that is shown on our homepage. If you just want to listen because you don't want to look at our mugs, that's cool. I ain't offended at all. If you don't want to look at my face, that's great because I know I'm still a good-looking black man. You know what I'm saying? It's all good. But any way that you want to connect with us, we're all for it. And as always, Clare United Methodist Church, we're open here every week, Sundays at 10 a.m. for worship online and in person, and at the Safe House Podcast, 6:30-ish, as we like to say, every Wednesday as announced and as we go along. So, Mitchell, if you could open us up in prayer, and we're going to try to just dive on in a little bit with this kind of overview recap of the last week or so. Cool?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Before we do that, though, I just want to make sure that we all get to give some proper congratulations.
Oh, Lord.
I know that you don't want me to do this, but yeah.
He said today's sponsor.
Yeah, your pastor, Pastor Ferguson, was commissioned as a provisional elder in the West Ohio Conference of the United Methodist Church this past weekend at annual conference. Yeah.
Y'all all right with me. Bless y'all. Bless y'all, man. Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. And we're going to probably touch on that a little bit, too.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead, man. Let's go to the Lord in prayer, man. I appreciate it.
Dear God, thank you once again for this day. Thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for the time we get to spend together. We get to be at the top of the mountain together sometimes. We get to be in the valley together sometimes, Lord. But we get to be together with you and just guide our paths as we navigate the ups and the downs and as we enter into the Word, as we dive into the Word. Just be with us. Help us to have the heart and the mind and the ears to really digest and take this in, Lord. Be with us as we have a conversation and just through the rest of the day. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Bless you, man. Thank you. And thank you, everybody that's online for the congratulations and everything. I appreciate it so much. And all of you that are online, remember, you can comment in the chat. Even people that are in person with us, if you just don't feel like getting on the mic, you can throw your question in the chat because I know some of y'all go into the chat anyway. You know, make sure that we're getting the activity so we are seeing what's on people's minds and in their hearts.
Absolutely.
So I'll be honest because we always, you know, talk before we get on and we go over this stuff. If I'm honest, this with all that happened last week, and after Saturday, I'll just be real with you. After Saturday, when my head hit the pillow on Saturday, I was so relieved to be in my bed. You just can't even begin to I thought my pillow was brand new. You know how you get, when you first get a new pillow and, you get that thing set up and it just feel just so different. Now, I know my pillows are not new by any stretch of the imagination, but boy, it felt like it was brand new. I was ready. And what happened, and this always happens, I lay down, I try to veg out and all this stuff. And you know what happened to me? After all the congratulations, after all the celebratory stuff, the first thing that happened was, oh my God, we got the podcast next week. Quite literally, that's how my brain worked. It was just like, we gotta get ready. I gotta get ready for Wednesday.
Back at it again.
Right. I wouldn't even ready. I'm not even talking about Sunday. Sunday morning was just around the corner. I knew I had to get up and preach and all that. And that was done. I'm talking about, I was like, man, I got to sit with this. And what was interesting when we're talking about this today, and I hope that we really demonstrate the imagery.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tendency as a people to be so high on celebrating the things God does that we don't always know how to come down the mountain. So people that have climbed like Mount Everest and gone all these high points, right? They done gone to these high points and they stick that flag, they stay up there, they camp out there after taking like 50 and 60 days to climb and all that kind of stuff. And they celebrate being at the top and they stay up there a while. But eventually you got to come down. And so we have to learn how to come down from these high moments and recognize that on our way down, more than likely is the next thing and the next mission that we have to face.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of want to deal with today, because I want to kind of give insight into what we experienced last week a little bit, because it wasn't just about me being commissioned as a provisional elder. My man Mitchell Harper is now former, right?
As of July 1.
As of July 1. Look, July 1 is nothing but around the corner.
Right.
As of July 1, he will be the former co-chair of the late of
Conference co-lay leader.
Conference co-lay leader, yes. As of July 1, after 2 cycles, 2 quadrenniums. Lord, have mercy. How did you do that? I do not know.
Microsoft Word doesn't even recognize quadrennium as a word.
I know it doesn't. So after 8 years of doing that, you'll be coming off of that particular piece as of July 1. And so there was a lot of celebration and reflection. And
I mean, the bishop's retiring, right?
Right, bishop's retiring. He officially retires at the end of August. And I mean, I have never seen anybody get celebrated so hard for retirement in my life. But it's kind of it kind of shows what someone may mean when they've done the best that they can. You know, I heard one of my colleagues say, when they reflected on another former bishop of West Ohio, she said to me, I never saw anybody celebrate the retirement of a certain bishop in the same way that we've done it for Bishop Palmer. And I kind of said to myself, it could be a sign that when you lead well and when people appreciate your leadership, we ain't even doing that. We ain't doing that. When you lead well, nah, because I ain't. But we're in a majority situation, and that doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
but when you lead well, you honor those that lead well. You honor those that make impact. That is a fact. But I mean, you take all that, celebrating, 24 years as an Episcopal leader.
Yeah.
Not to mention 40-something years in active ministry. You take the celebration of ministry, which I think they said, what was the aggregate number of years?
Oh, it was something stupid.
It was like over 900 years in
like
the
8 or 9, yeah.
Like it's like close to 900 years in the aggregate of all the retirees this year. Thank you.
Wow.
817.
Yeah.
So combined years, 817 of all the retirees. right? That's a lot of years of serving and dealing with people. And then, I mean, let's call it what it is.
Absolutely.
An aggregate number. And in that number included one of our district superintendents.
Yeah.
Our district superintendent for Olentangy District, who's been in ministry for 50.
Yep.
They didn't realize it. He's been in ministry for 50 years.
With one of the greatest mustaches in the game.
Yes,
might I
sir.
add.
That
Yes.
mustache is pristine.
Yes.
Like it's never been
That's right, that's
none.
right, that's
None.
right.
It's immaculate, man. You know, people with facial hair talking about other people with facial hair is amazing. But when you take all that, all the legislative stuff we did,
Yeah.
all the services that we had, having over 1,100 people in the same space at the same time, and having healthy debates, long debates.
Yeah.
My back is telling me about that long debate, all that stuff. And after you get through all those things, what's next? When we do things as churches individually, when we have these high moments, when we have church anniversary celebrations, when we have VBS, like what's coming up for us, spoiler, VBS is coming up
Yeah.
at Clare United Methodist Church, started on June 17th, day after Father's Day. Bring your kids, bring yourselves, because there's plenty for kids and adults to learn. Amen. Okay, that was the plug. When you have all these different things, how do you come down from those mountaintop experiences?
Yeah.
Do you even want to come down from the mountaintop?
Well, that's like sort of my question, because I think when we think that there's mountain and then there's valley, you think that there's got to be some sort of like tumble down the mountain to wind up in that valley, when like sometimes that's just how the road goes.
Right.
Like it's not always a disaster for you to be in that situation.
I wrote a whole book on the valley. I have a published book, Led to the Stream. You can find it on, you can go to Amazon, find it, and buy it. And I talk about how the valley is not a bad place. Valley is actually where you get most of the things that you need.
Yeah.
Your river is in the valley. If you're talking about being sheep, your grass is in the valley, all that stuff. What you need is down there. The mountaintop is supposed to be, here's an achievement. I've reached the top. I've traveled the road. I've reached the top, but eventually I got to go back down because everything I need is down there. So we have to begin to teach people how to navigate high moments and to be able to come back down. Not come down as in lose the excitement, lose the momentum, lose this, lose that, but to come down in a way where you recognize this was only a momentary thing, and now you have to take that and place it into the next thing and the next assignment and the next deal that you have coming.
Yeah, in order to move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So Mark 9:2-13 is the text, and we've been here before in some way, shape, or form, and it's one of my favorite places. And the reason it's one of my favorite places, I remember a conference that I did when I was in Baptist church, and I was actually a part of Full Gospel for a minute. I did a lecture in a black church context. Usually people will say that a lecture is just another way of saying you're going to preach. I actually lectured. I had an hour. I was not up there to preach. I was up there to lecture. And so, yeah. Mark 9:2-13. And I dealt with this theme where we talk about Jesus and the transfiguration. I want you to take into mind this word transfiguration because, of course, Everybody said it a million times. Some people don't even know what it necessarily means, but I'm going to give you a very general meaning. Transfiguration means to be turned inside out. To be turned inside out. So if you take that meaning, and as we read the text, you're going to see a couple things, and we'll highlight them in a minute. But Jesus is taking up his inner circle of disciples up to this point in the mountain, and here are all these things that are occurring. So let me go ahead and read, because I don't always read, but let me read here.
Yeah.
Mark chapter 9, beginning at verse 2. And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became radiant, intensely white, as no one on earth could bleach them. That's some strong bleach.
Mm-hmm.
And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. And Peter said to Jesus, Rabbi, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. For he did not know what to say, for they were terrified. And a cloud overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud. This is my beloved son. Listen to him. Let me say it one again. A voice came out of the cloud, said, this is my beloved son. Listen to him. And suddenly looking around, they no longer saw anyone with them but Jesus only. And as they were coming down the mountain, he charged them to tell no one what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves, questioning what this rising from the dead might mean. And they asked him, why do scribes say that first Elijah must come? And he said to them, Elijah does come first to restore all things. And how is it written that of the Son of Man that he should suffer many things and be treated with contempt? But I tell you that Elijah has come, and they did to him whatever they pleased, as it is written of him. Word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Jesus turned himself inside out. And when he turned himself inside out, what appeared? Who appeared?
Who appeared? Yeah.
Go ahead. Who appeared?
Elijah and Moses.
Now, that's interesting. Consider, Elijah was a prophet. Moses represented what?
The law.
The law. So Jesus turns himself inside out, and there appears the prophetic and the law. And Jesus even said at one point, I did not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it.
Yeah.
Which means the law was a teacher that was to give insight into the mind of God. Mm-hmm. But to really follow it in the real spirit of the law, you had to understand what was behind it. That's being prophetic within it. How can you keep the Sabbath if things are incomplete?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's just one of the, keep the Sabbath day holy, right? But it's not holy either way if things are not good. Go back to creation. God rested, not because God was tired, but because God looked around and everything was what?
Good.
All right, y'all in there.
Yep.
Everything was good. So when things are not complete or in a state of wholeness, it is difficult to find yourself in having an ability to create Sabbath. because you're challenged to make sure that everything is what? Whole and complete.
Yeah.
Now, some people still do create a Sabbath space because they need to.
Mm-hmm.
And we all need to. Matter of fact, within this denomination, they tell all of us that serve as clergy that we have a mandatory Sabbath day, and it's separate from an off day.
Yeah.
Just so y'all know,
Mm-hmm.
I have an off day that's mandatory, but I also have a Sabbath day that is mandatory. I got to put it out there and that's from the denomination.
Yeah.
It's mandatory that I have an off day, and it's mandatory that I have a Sabbath day, and they are two separate things. An off day, you need to recover, but a Sabbath day, you need to be able to what? Replenish self.
Mm-hmm.
Time with God.
Yeah.
Not time with y'all. I love y'all, but not time with y'all. Time with God to pour back into myself, right? Because I can't do what I need to do unless I have what? Spent time with God for real.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the law says keeping the Sabbath holy. Don't covet, don't steal, don't do this, don't do that. Why is that important? Because everybody that steals doesn't necessarily do petty theft.
Mm-hmm.
You can steal from the disenfranchised because you want to be greater.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
Y'all got real quiet. I didn't think it was going to get real quiet like that when I said that. People take the time to manipulate the downtrodden to lift themselves up. That's worse, in my opinion, than petty theft.
Yeah.
Now watch this, but they're both stealing.
Yep.
But you see what happens when you talk about the law on the surface and not the depth of it when you go deeper?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? That is why people get caught up in legalism and they don't even know what the spirit of the law is.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I love in verse 4 where it says Elijah and Moses appeared before them and they were talking with Jesus. Like there's a conversation happening.
Yes.
That's not just this is the law, so we have like there's a collaborative spirit almost there in terms of how we engage with what each of us has as a strength here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if I'm supposed to love the Lord, my God, all my heart, all my soul, and all my mind, and love my neighbor as myself,
Mm-hmm.
how do I truly love my neighbor? I don't do things that are harmful to my neighbor.
Yeah.
I love my neighbor because I recognize the humanity in which they were created.
Mm-hmm.
They were created in the image and likeness of God. Therefore, their lives are sacred, regardless of what I may think about how that package is presented.
Yep.
Uh-oh. That means I have to be able to still embrace my neighbor in their uniqueness, whatever that is.
Yep.
And people struggle with that because they are more concerned about the presentation than doing that right. We can disagree, but I can disagree with a whole lot of people, and I do. But do I want them to be harmed? No.
Right.
Do I want them to suffer? No. Not even in my most angry of states, okay? I don't want people to go through hell if they don't have to.
Right.
That's because I honor the sacredness of their life. Nothing in me should be so consumed by their opinion or something else that I want damage to happen. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we are trying to condition what the love of God and all that stuff looks like based upon us. And then we miss it. And we miss it so hard because we're consumed with ourselves and we think Well, if they're not following this law,
Mm-hmm.
then they're just out of luck.
Yeah.
I wish I could say it the way I really want to say it. I'm trying to keep it clean.
That's right. That's right.
But they're just out of luck.
Mhm.
No, they have opportunity if they want it, and that's their choice. That's not up to me.
Right.
But if they suffering and going through, me saying I want them to continue to suffer in it is just as bad
Mm-hmm.
as whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Because I am perpetuating something that doesn't need to be perpetuated.
And in the process, probably doing more harm to yourself than you're doing to them.
Because you're consumed with
Because
it.
your spirit's jacked up.
Oh, man, listen. I hate it. I'll be real with you. I've been mad at people
Mm-hmm.
like hot. Like the walls in my house. Now, the house I live in, I grew up in it. And if those cinder block walls could talk, they remember when I put my young fist to them and when I yelled into them because of things that people did.
Yep.
And all it did was make me sick. Because what was all that going to do?
Right.
In the end analysis,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the end analysis, all it did was wear on me. I got tired. I got upset. I got frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? They didn't care one way or another because they were still doing whatever they were
I was
doing.
about to say, they don't even know that you're mad.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't know. And if they do know, they didn't care
They don't
enough
care.
to even try to rectify it.
Yep.
They are doing whatever they're doing. And I forgot that having that same energy. See, one of the worst things that ever been said in these last few years. Keep that same energy. No, fool. Don't keep that same energy. Because if you have the same energy as someone else, you wasting energy on doing stuff to yourself.
Right.
And you're taking away from you. And suddenly, now you're talking about, well, I'm morally correct and what's the word I'm looking for? I am pious.
Pious. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My piety's on point, but it don't mean your spirit on point.
Mm-hmm.
You can be churchy and pious with a certain group of people, but it doesn't mean that God is honoring your piety when it is backed up by, I want to make sure that people understand that I'm better than this.
Yeah.
No, it'll show.
Mm-hmm. Well, that so we have Moses here, right, representing the law, and this makes me think during the pandemic, so 2021, 2022, something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
I was still on Twitter, and yeah, back when it was still called Twitter. Yeah. But there was this whole discourse around Pharisees. You get into weird
Oh,
Christian
my
Twitter,
goodness.
and you
Oh,
get
Lord.
all types of weird conversations.
Oh, I need to hear this.
But there was a whole conversation around stop using the word Pharisee as a negative, right?
Mhm.
Like to just throw it at somebody to say you think your religion and your faith and your relationships with people aren't in alignment or whatever. Because like the Pharisees served a very specific role in that culture.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like you said, their piety unchecked created some issues,
Right.
but they did serve an important purpose in helping the people to understand what was expected and required of them. So like there's a balance there where like you got to be able to say like I might not like how you do this, but I do understand that there is a purpose that you serve here, and I can't discount whatever that is just because you don't necessarily know how to do it right.
Exactly. So now, because I'm not saying we're off track, we're still on it, but I want to make sure that we get to the destination. All this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Christ turned himself inside out. The representation of the law and prophetic were in the space conversing with Jesus, and then the phrase from heaven, "This is my beloved son." Now, when he was baptized, he said, in whom I'm well pleased. I'm pleased with him. This time, telling them, listen to him.
Yeah.
There's a command. He done showed you what is within him. Showed you what's within him. Now that you see it, listen to him. Don't just follow. Whatever comes out of his mouth, you better listen.
Yeah.
If you weren't listening before, let me emphasize you need to listen to him. And now that they've heard all that, they starting to come down the mountain. But I skipped a part. Peter was scared when he said, how about we make 3 tents for what we're seeing here? One for you, one for Elijah, one for Moses. Here's the part where we fall in. We have a tendency to get so scared of what we see and what we experience. And people will be like, there ain't no way you're saying we're scared. When we celebrate stuff, I'm actually going to say it, and I'm going to say it in a way I don't think anybody's ever said it. When we celebrate stuff and we have a good time and we come back and we say we had a great time, you know what we do the next week? We talk about how great of a time we had. And you know what happens if it was a really good time? We'll still talk about it for a whole month. We had such a great time. Do you know? And guess what? You're right. We'll talk about it all year like this was the greatest thing we've ever done. And guess what we've missed the whole time? The opportunity that's waiting down the mountain. Because even though it's not in the selected text, all you got to do is read past verse 13. Do you know what's waiting on them?
Chaos.
The other disciples were approached by a father that had a son that was possessed. And he asked the disciples that were left, can you help my son? And they could do nothing. And chaos has broken out. And that's what's waiting at the bottom of the mountain. If they stay at the top of the mountain, they don't go. If they stay at the top of the mountain and camp out there, they miss the opportunity to be a blessing to someone who needed them the most.
Say that. Yep.
When we keep Jesus locked up, we miss the opportunity to see how Christ wants to really move.
Yeah. Yep.
You want to tabernacle Christ on that mountain because you don't think there will ever be another experience again. And you know what's insane about it? Doing that means that you miss out on seeing the power of God at work.
Yeah. Now, is there again, not to get too far off track, but is there a privilege conversation to be had there? Peter has experienced this thing and now wants to, build this altar to it, but isn't necessarily like, why don't we bring more people up on the mountain?
He's speaking from a place because let's tie it together. He made the statement out of fear. We don't know. We can assume that the fear was he's literally seeing 2 images of individuals that he only read about.
Yeah.
Think about this. You've only read about Elijah. You weren't there when Elijah was doing ministry. You only read about Moses. You weren't there when they crossed the Red Sea. And all of a sudden, it's Jesus that you've seen and you've walked with having a conversation with 2 people. One was caught up into heaven, Elijah. Chariot took him on up. And then you got Moses, who didn't even make it into the promised land and was buried in an area that nobody even knew about.
Yep.
He was buried on a mountain. Okay? You ain't never seen him. You only read about him. You only heard about him in the synagogue, right? And then you standing there, and all of a sudden Jesus, with his clothes, I'm not saying they were dingy, but when he turned himself inside out, they said that his whole appearance was whiter than anything they've ever seen, and nobody could bleach it that white. The crispiest T-shirt you've ever seen was still not as white as what they saw.
I didn't even know they were bleaching back then.
Woo!
I had no idea.
Man, listen, couldn't even bleach the stuff to be this bright. And then you see the Christ you follow talking to two people you have never seen, you've only read about, which means that you had to be so insightful about that text back in the day and such a good student in the synagogue to even know who you were seeing.
Right. Ain't no pictures.
Right. That's deep. You don't even know what they look like for real. You just heard about them. You've read about them. They've taught about them. And then they're there talking to Jesus. What are you going to do? You're like, so Peter he's talking out of place like, he's freaking out.
Yeah.
And some people, I hate to say it, when God does major things, some people freak out the same way. That's why they don't want to come back down.
Yeah.
When am I ever going to see something like this ever happen again?
Yeah.
Okay, let me say it a different way. It sounds real churchy. When is the next time I'm going to see a move of God happen like this in our local church? I got to hold on to it.
But at the same time, it seems like he's having a hard time understanding that things can't be the same. Like, now that you've experienced this moment, nothing is the same. Like, it's interesting to me that God says, "This is my beloved son, listen to him." And I feel like there should be a shift that happens in terms of, I know that you think you know who Jesus is, but whatever you think he is much more than that.
Yes.
But the first thing that Peter calls him is Rabbi. And it's like, I'm so much more like I am your teacher, yes, but like you did see what you think you just saw.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more going on here than just, oh yeah, he's it's bigger than that.
Wouldn't the fear be one that was tantamount to I don't know how I'm going to explain it. I don't possess the spiritual eloquence to say this is what occurred, because for one, I don't have the words.
Yeah.
And for two, who's going to believe me? We in a situation now where I got to explain to something that has never happened in the history of happenings. And explain it in a way where you believe me to the point of understanding.
And Peter already has a habit of not saying exactly.
And Peter already got a habit of not saying. Matter of fact, he probably cussed.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
He probably cussed. That's probably what he was fearing about, because the Lord heard him cuss.
Yeah,
That's
I'm sorry.
I mean, I love Peter for it. He was real all the time. But let's go through the text a little further, and then we're going to start to unpack this. Now, when he said that, Jesus did not, in this text, he did not down him for the statement.
Yeah.
He did not chew him out, none of that. He let Peter be himself. He was afraid, and the only thing he thought was, we have to mark the moment. And something just dropped in my spirit. Every place, this would be almost cultural if you think about it. If you go back in the Old Testament and look deep enough, whenever a major event would happen, let's say to Jacob or, even to Moses or other people, and it happened in a certain place, they ended up naming the place.
Right.
So to a certain extent, this is not out of line within.
Yeah, he's not off point.
He's not off point within cultural and historic context. You mark things when they happen, but they would mark it or name it so they wouldn't forget. That's the thing. That's the thing that we have to remember. They would name a place so they wouldn't forget what happened there and still move on. Now, he's talking about marking it with tabernacles, altars, almost to say, we got to what? Come back to this place.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference. When they crossed the Jordan into the promised land, they said, we got to lay out these stones because they were entering into the land. And they were going to come by this spot again because they were now living in the land.
Right.
Because somebody would probably bring you that up, be like, well, they established a monument to remember them crossing the river. Yes, but they were moving into their promise. And they needed to mark it so they would come back when a generation would come through and said, what do these stones mean?
Yeah, how did we even get here? Yeah.
There's a difference. You still moved on and established the land. And when you establish the land, you might forget how you even got here. Word of mouth. Come on, black folk.
I was about to say, right?
What is it about us historically that we're beginning to lose? Not beginning, but we've almost lost it. There was a day, and you know it like I do because we grew up in the same way. We had to be told about our history. Not just in our families, but for us specifically, because you and I we went to the same church, and every year that we had watch night service, the kids, we were told that we had to memorize, not read, memorize the Emancipation Proclamation.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't tell you that thing off the top of my head to save my life now. But I remember when I was 14 years old and it was watch night and I had to get up in front of the congregation and I had to recite the Emancipation Proclamation because people would forget why a watch night service existed. It did not exist because we were there because we wanted to have church on New Year's Eve.
Right.
It was watch night service because it was the reminder of what black people were watching over the night as the night was going to fall on their oppression with the new day dawning of their freedom. Y'all just want to have church on New Year's Eve. No. The reason we had watch night service was to remember that this document, this executive order, was established to say that slavery had ended. The same document that was not acknowledged until, here we are in June, until it finally got to the last place down in Texas. June 19th, 1865. And now we call it a national holiday because people decided to get religion and we call it Juneteenth. My bad, that was too black for some folk. But again, there was a day when you talked about it enough so you wouldn't forget.
Yeah.
You established things so that people would not forget how far they had come, not to go back and say, this is why we're still here. Come on, man, that ain't it. And Peter was suggesting to do something that was not even in the plan of God when it came to Jesus. We got to establish a tabernacle. No, Jesus came to die.
Right. Well, Sister Shirley said something interesting in the chat.
Yeah.
And if I understand her correctly, it sounds like she's maybe saying that Peter wasn't going to understand this until Pentecost anyway. Until that Holy Spirit comes down upon him. Like he can see it, but like clearly we know that the disciples didn't get it for a minute. So
then let's unpack the rest of the text. But go ahead, before we do that. Go ahead, man.
Well, would it be also correct to assume that Jesus just didn't want him to ruin it for everybody else?
Well, literally, the text says, and as they were coming down the mountain, he charged them to tell no one what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead.
Yeah.
Let me say that again. He told them now as they're coming down the mountain. Here's the transition. Don't tell nobody what you've seen.
Yeah. Probably because, like you said earlier, what a burden it would be for Peter to be like, where do I even start for this to make any sense to anybody?
I want to use something that is a little bit more relatable. Say you got a new car, but it ain't just a new car. It's a new Bugatti.
Oh, okay.
Gotta go to the Bugatti. Okay, go
You know what I mean?
ahead.
Yeah.
It's that.
I will wreck that, but yes, okay.
It's that. It's that kind of nice.
Okay.
But you gotta take it back to the hood.
Yeah.
You gotta park it in front of your apartment. You know, nobody knows how you got it. Nobody knows that, and it doesn't even matter. The fact is, you gotta park that Bugatti in the hood.
It belongs to the streets. It's not for me at that point. It's not for me.
You're going to get questioned. You're going to get questioned.
No, that's
so
right.
somebody is going to advise you. Somebody that's smarter than us. It's way smarter than me. Because I would park it in front of the house. Somebody's going to have to stop me, and it would probably be Jesus, and say, you don't.
You should get a house with a garage first before you.
Don't tell anybody about this car.
As I have said, and y'all forgive me, I said if I won the lottery, no, there's only certain people that would even know, and it's not because watch this, and it's not because I would tell them, but there's only certain people that know what my habits would be, and they would see the clues. And I told them that if I told them about what the clues would be, they are basically taking on a non-disclosure with me. There's an if I told you, you have unofficially signed an NDA with me.
Yeah.
Because nobody else need to know that I came into that kind of cash.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is sometimes because we get revelation or certain things happen, we don't know how to stay in the moment. That's actually the first point. Because when we have these kind of encounters with Christ, these high moments, to carry it down, we have to fully embrace the moment. So when we say fully embrace the moment, better use it in 2 words: internalize it. You got to take this thing in. Think about the fact that Jesus says, don't tell nobody about what you saw. Wouldn't you want to tell somebody about something that just happened out of this world? That's natural human reaction. Jesus, in a sense, is saying you need to internalize what you just witnessed. You can't just run off and just start talking about it.
You got to process it.
Come on, man. You got to, and that's the second thing. You got to gather the revelation of it, which is you got to process it. Look at you. Look at you being on point. Look at it. You got to internalize it first. You got to actually
Feel it.
be like,
That just happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
The internalizing of it, like, this really just went down. Like, I remember, I'm a lifelong Lakers fan.
Oh.
Lifelong. I'm talking about before Kobe and Shaq. I'm talking about
not just 99 to 02.
No.
Yeah, okay.
I'm talking about my heart was broken when the Bulls beat the Lakers in the finals. Woo! Jesus. I had on the door of my old room, which is now CJ's room, on that door, I had a Magic Johnson poster. Dunking on somebody. It was against the Boston Celtics.
Oh.
Yes, sir. That poster. Yes, Lord. I had that. I was heartbroken when the Bulls ran my boys off and they ran him off quick. I was heartbroken. And I had to internalize the fact Magic was old.
Yeah.
I had to internalize the fact that James Worthy was old. AC Green was not, I had Byron Scott. I had to, it hurt. Right.
Well, yeah.
And then here comes Kobe and Shaq. Life came back, but then it went away again. And then it was Kobe and Powell. And it was like, thank you, Jesus. And then it went away again. And Kobe got old, messed up both of his, Achilles. And he was like, I'm out. Dropped 81 on his last game, but he was gone. And then all of a sudden, little bit of life came back, and now they just don't know what to do.
Still can't win nothing.
Right, I mean, a chip is a chip. A chip is a chip. A chip is a chip. Right, a chip is a chip.
Winning is winning.
That's right.
Yeah.
No matter when it happens. But I know this. I had to internalize change. I had to internalize an event that strikes at a nerve. I had to internalize what I heard this morning on not First Take, on Get Up. There have been 6 different NBA champions, 6 straight seasons.
Yeah.
And people still try to talk about dynasties, but now they've had to change the definition of a dynasty. Because 6 straight years, different champions, that's been a long time since a stretch like that has happened, if it has ever happened.
Right.
If it has ever truly happened, right? And if it's happened, it's been a grip. I don't think it's ever happened. I'm not here to debate that. But you got to internalize things when they happen. You got to take a minute and take in what's going on. And then after that, you have to then extract the revelation of it, okay? You got to begin to process it. Why do you think Jesus would tell them going down the mountain, don't talk to anybody about it? Why do you think he would say that? Like for real? I mean, if you take this in, why do you think Jesus would even say, don't tell nobody?
Because I don't need you talking out the side of your neck if you don't actually know what you're talking about. Like you have seen this, but there is still more learning for you to do. There's more to this, because again, we're gonna run into a situation right after this that just shows that like y'all have not realized your full form, your full authority, your full capacity yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would rather have you slow down for a minute and actually know what it is that just happened. Try to genuinely understand it before you just start talking about it.
So then let's take this statement from Robin online. So you're saying my encounters with God is something that I should internalize first before I testify, or should I give a testimony, wait to give a testimony until it's processed, until she processes it? What I would say is sometimes you have to be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put myself out there first. Sunday, I told the church in general about all the things about a lot of the things that have been going on. My life, my family, this, that, and the other. I didn't go too deep, but I ended up saying, after all these months of dealing with all this stuff, and this is what I said: if God has done anything through me in that time, and I know that I could not have done anything of relevance or importance without the help of God, the prayers of the righteous, all that kind of stuff, there's no way I could have done it. That's after processing.
Right.
Because, see, I was in the moment. Mm-hmm. I had to be a caretaker. I had to be, this. I had to run people here and there. I had to be in the moment, because I'm asking God while I'm in the moment, why all this? So then for things to end up turning out, after praying about it, all that stuff, better than I expected, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's when I'm able to really say, Lord, I already said my thank yous to God,
Right.
but I'm able to talk about it a little more because I had to take some time with it.
Yeah.
Like, why all this
Right.
at the same time? One thing after the other, because sometimes we just want to say, Lord, I thank you that you brought me through,
Right.
but we don't even know why it was happening and for what purpose ultimately.
Yeah.
Because some things are used to teach you that you need to be able to trust God all over again.
I think is there a distinction between like a praise and a testimony? Like I can in any moment I can praise, but to have a genuine testimony, I gotta stop. I gotta talk this through with me, God. Like explain to me sort of, how we got here, so I have a genuine, so I can actually testify in a way that actually blesses somebody.
Yeah. I would say that, and I think we do need to define that. Praise reports are easy because you're just so thankful that the thing
happened at all. Yeah.
Right. But when you really step back, some things and some seasons and some times and some moments are there to teach you some things that you may not have realized you needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can say now, for all the stuff that I've encountered over the last, not just the last 4 months, that's been real tight, over the last year. Because I can tell you for real, over the last 12 months, it's been crazy.
Yeah.
But I've learned all over again how to lean into God. I learned all over again that it's okay to not just cry, weep.
Yeah.
Other people may not have seen me weep, but it's all right to actually curl up in a ball and scream out to God, I can't do it. And God literally lifts everything up. You see what I mean? Like
that's Elijah, isn't it?
I mean, but if we don't internalize it as in, this is more than a moment. This is something more.
Yeah.
And then if you don't take the time to process that thing, you go out and just talk about, well, the Lord just showed up again and showed up again and showed up again. Well, we know what the Lord can do. What did you learn from it?
Right.
He pulled me out of the fire again. What did you learn?
Right. Yeah, if you're gonna end up right back in the fire again next week.
That's all I'm talking about. That's all I'm saying. Like, did you take the time to really process what you went through? And sometimes we don't emphasize reflection enough.
Yeah.
It is okay for you. It's okay for you to shout, but sometimes it's okay for you not to shout yet.
Correct. Yeah.
And I know that's almost contrary in a predominantly African-American church. But sometimes you ain't got to shout quick, but sometimes you ought to be able to shout great.
Yeah.
There's a difference. Once I really understand what I've been through, good God Almighty, the praise I don't need to pump or prod you as a preacher, as clergy from the pulpit. I don't even got to pump you. And I've seen it happen. I'll be like, look, I didn't say, and people have heard me say it in church. I'll be like, I'm not telling you this for you to shout for me. I'm telling you this to give you entree to consider your own stuff.
Yeah.
Because shouting with me over that's cool. But man, I know that there are others that haven't even reflected on what God has done for them.
Yeah.
That's literally how I am. I'm like, look, I got my shout, my cry out Sunday, but I was literally ushering and opening the floor for people to consider what your encounters with God have been. Because shouting with me is cool, but if you can't think about and then the statements, when I think, take on a different significance.
Yes.
You see what I mean? Because it's about internalizing the moment. It's about processing the moment. I'm holding you up. Go ahead, bro.
I would like to say that it's natural but it can't be. Sometimes we just need to not tell our business. A lot of times, the praise report is premature. Premature testimonies.
Okay.
Because folks don't realize they still in the test.
Yeah.
You tell and you celebrate too soon, and then the enemy make a run. You know what I'm talking about? And drop 20 on you real quick. While you sit there blinking, you clapping, high-fiving folks. And because I know I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I go through these phases of one-way communication with God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to God. I'm telling God everything that I this is, Lord, thank you, and Lord, please do, and Lord, but I'm not waiting to hear what He got to say back.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me get it off my chest. Bye.
That's
Yeah. Therapist Jesus.
you know, therapist Jesus. And
Hold
and
on. That's going in the chat. Therapist
And
Jesus.
then we get to shouting and we get our hallelujah on, and as soon as we leave from the place of protection or the place of peace, we come out from underneath that umbrella,
Yeah.
and the storm is still coming down. You know, so I guess the question that I'm asking is, how do you recognize and then improve from that one way type of communication? Because we still suffering. We think we got over it, but as soon as the emotion dies down, you realize that you still going through.
That leads to the third point. That's a good segue to the third point, and then we'll again unpack it. We have to, in order to properly carry our encounter, we have to learn the timing of revealing the encounter to others, which is basically we have to have patience with it. Read the text one more time. As they were coming down the mountain, he charged them to tell no one what they had seen, comma, until the Son of Man had risen from the dead.
Yeah.
You got to internalize it. That means you're possessing the moment. Internalizing means you're possessing the moment. You got to gather the revelation. That means you're processing this thing. So he said, don't tell nobody. Then you get to the comma. There's an appointed time that comes after the comma. Don't tell nobody until the Son of Man has risen from the dead. It is after the resurrection that you can talk about this.
Yeah.
So every testimony has an appointed time. People don't believe it, but it's true. Every testimony of every individual has an appointed time. When I first became a part of the United Methodist Church, I remember we used to have basically a gathering of clergy after they had been appointed to the new churches. And they would gather all of us in the district together, those that were going to new appointments, and we would come together. I only went to one of these because I guess after that they stopped doing it. But this was the first time I heard Dr. Bias in a setting, and he talked about his relationship with his son. And I think he's talked about it several times, but he talked about it and he said, you know, there were some things happening with his son, you know, some ups and some downs, things like that. And he started thinking about his own relationship, and he was praying to God about his son. But then after a while, he stopped praying about his son per se, and then he started praying this. Said, God, help me to be the father my son needs.
Yeah.
Now watch this. You ready for it? That was 2018 when I heard that from him. 2018. He didn't know until I told him later how much I needed that as a father to a young child, and being a father who was a fatherless child.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge of my life at that point was I going to try to be the father I didn't have, or to be CJ's dad?
Mm-hmm.
How could he have known? He couldn't have known that. I didn't share none of that stuff. But every testimony has an appointed time. And that thing hasn't left me all these years later.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And now I'm able to talk to one of my other, he's become a friend, and he's a colleague. He was commissioned. He was commissioned this past weekend. My man Ashton Dupler.
Yeah.
My guy. Love him. He's about to be a father.
Wow.
Few months away.
Yeah.
Baby is due in September. We got together a few months back, and I was like, man, this is a good time, right? And he's just like, I was like, man, I just want to share some stuff with you because, you know, I know what it's to be a clergy person about to have that first child.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, man, anything you can share is cool. I told him everything. I gave him the whole playbook. I said, I know your wife's going to have cravings, all these different things. And then I asked him, like, you going to have a boy or girl? He's like, having a son. I'm like, bet. Here's what's going to probably happen. You need to pray in advance. She may not know what she wants to eat. And if there's things that she don't want to eat, she may end up having to ask you. And it may bless your life, because not only will you be able to handle her, but you might get blessed to get what you want at the same time. Because that's kind of what happens when your wife is dealing with about to give birth to a son.
Yeah.
I can't think of some of the best times of that pregnancy. I was able to eat whatever I wanted. I didn't have to settle and get 5 different things, boy. Marissa would look at me and be like, what do you want? I'm like, say less.
Yeah,
Let's go here.
say, yeah.
Oh, man, bless your whole life. And I just gave him what I was able to give him. I was able to give him things from my experience. And he was just like, man, I'm just grateful you took time with me to just share.
Yeah.
You don't know what your testimony at the right time can do.
Yeah.
But it can't do what it's meant to do until you have taken time with it.
Is there an inverse of that, in terms of there has to be a time when someone is going to be receptive to it?
Look at it like this. It's just like preaching every Sunday. I don't care how many people shout, everybody don't hear the same thing.
Yeah.
I am not, after 26 years of ministry, I am not insane enough to believe that everybody that's ever heard me preach on a Sunday morning or any other time, that everybody got the same thing,
Right.
and everybody received the same thing at the same
That's
time.
the beauty of it.
But for whoever it was meant for, they were receptive because they were prepared to hear anything from God.
Yeah.
So it's 2 parts. The appointed time is not on our timeline. The appointed time is only confirmed according to whoever is in a position to receive anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 parts. I have to be submissive to do, and then that person has to be prepared to receive.
Yeah.
If you ain't prepared to receive, you know what I'm saying? Ain't no point. You feel what I'm saying? Ain't no point. Like, why come to church if you ain't gonna receive nothing?
Right. Yeah.
I'm just being honest.
Or at least have the expectation.
Oh, say that word again.
The expectation.
Lord Jesus, people don't come to church with expectation. They come out of routine.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah.
People literally come to church with no expectations and then get mad when they say nothing happened and everything was happening, but they were not in a position to receive.
But if they would slow down and internalize and process what they're hearing, sometimes we just assume well, if the Spirit's gonna hit me, the Spirit's just gonna hit me.
And that ain't it.
Yeah,
And can I go one more? Wait, can I go one more deeper?
absolutely.
I know that wasn't good English, but it's good theology. Let me go one more deeper. Notice that all the disciples were not on the mountain.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, let me say. All the disciples were not on the mountain. Only 3. Everybody is not in a space of maturity to handle certain moments.
Yeah.
You actually, and I'm about to blow your mind. Spiritual maturity is not always knowledge based.
Yeah.
It is not always about your piety and religiosity. Spiritual maturity is saying to yourself, I am ready to hear and experience whatever God has for me in this moment. And even if it blows my mind, I am prepared because I want to know and understand God more every day.
Every day. Yeah.
That's maturity.
Yeah. And there's intention behind. There has to be intention behind that.
Yes.
There has to be intention behind that.
Gee, I don't even know if this.
You're good.
I don't know if this has anything to do with what we were talking about, but my mom, my brother, his wife, my sister went to a holiness church. I guess it's called holiness church. I don't know.
Okay.
Where people fell out and and lost their wigs and all that kind of thing. Honestly,
Yeah.
truthfully, and we grew up here. And this is my these are my roots right here.
Mm-hmm.
But I would go to their church, and so I could be with family.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at all these people hooping and hollering and falling out and I'm thinking, is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Because I felt nothing. This is years ago. And then I come to Claire, and we had Claire. Methodists are always so quiet and dead and whatever. And this in the last couple of years, especially with you, and maybe even before that, it's gotten kind of better. And here I am. I'm not hooping. I'm not hollering. But I'm clapping my hands,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm standing up,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm saying, yes, Lord, and whatever, I'm thinking, who are you? I don't know what this has to do with anything, but I just had to get that out of me because I'm listening to everything, and I can imagine Peter, when he sees Elijah and he sees Moses and he sees Jesus. What else could he say but what can I do to help? I'm here. What can I do to help?
Right.
And that's what I want to do. I want to help somebody else. Don't be afraid to show your true feelings and true calling or whatever.
So let me throw this out here.
Yeah.
A lot of people that are in more charismatic movements, most of those movements were actually birthed out of Wesleyan theology. And some people don't like to hear that because they don't want to study history.
Mm-hmm.
But like Azusa Street happened. It may be Pentecostal, but it was actually birthed out of Wesleyan ideas.
Yeah. If I mention the words tradition,
Yes.
experience,
Talk.
scripture,
Yes, sir.
what's the fourth one? Either way, we're talking about the
grace.
we're talking about the
Yes.
Wesleyan quadrilateral here.
Birthed out of it.
Yeah.
Our experiences, though,
Mm-hmm.
and how we experience God is very different. Listen, you look at my background, I'm a 6th generation preacher pastor. I got cats, Kojic bishops, Baptist pastors, all of it. And people, even to this day, they know that I pastor in the United Methodist Church. They be like, well, you don't sound like no United Methodist preacher I've ever heard. And I keep trying to tell folk, well, I wasn't a good Baptist to begin with when I was there. I'm not a good anybody.
Yeah.
I've been ecumenical all of my ministry.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding what God is revealing to you and how you take the revelation of that encounter. So you're saying to yourself, who is this person now? You've had a different encounter at this stage in your walk with God that doesn't look like what you once were. And now you're expressing that. In the same way, Jesus knew everybody couldn't go to that mountain with him.
Yeah.
And then when you read later, you can see why. Because the others that were still at the bottom of the mountain were not prepared. Because after they now come down the mountain, they got to face an angry dad dealing with his child, coming saying, Jesus, I came to your disciples and they're frauds. That's the Ferguson translation.
I can just see them looking down, kicking
Yeah.
the dirt. Just, I'm sorry.
And then Jesus handles business.
Mm-hmm.
And after he handles business, they ask him, why is it that you could do it and we couldn't? And then he taught them, these things come. And I'm going to generalize it. Not just prayer and fasting. Let me generalize it. These things come by preparation.
Yeah.
I prepare myself always because you never know when it's time to do what you need to do.
Yeah. Now, is that the point? Is the point is that there were supposed to be two different lessons happening at the same time?
I think ultimately, yes, because you have an encounter of seeing Jesus in a certain context, and then you come down the mountain, and then you see the Jesus you saw up there move in a way that only someone who is prepared can move. Why can't I preach like this person? Well, you don't prepare like this person. Yeah. Why can't I sing like this person? Well, you don't prepare a certain way. So they go and not only work on their craft, they pray about it. What? Yeah, you get up and sing on a Sunday morning, watch this. Don't just know the music, pray. Because when you pray, guess what? You're able to then minister.
Yeah.
Ooh, Jesus.
Yeah, don't. You can build the tabernacle, but you still better go down that mountain because there's work to do.
You can't stay. Here comes the drug reference of the night.
Well,
you can't stay high forever. Come on, man. Listen, I know you can't smoke enough, snort enough, inject enough to stay high all the time. And that's substance. I am not endorsing substance abuse. But in the same way, you cannot stay high enough to stay high all the time. You will have to spend more money to get more product to try to achieve the high you just had. And in the natural, guess what? By a certain point, your body has gotten adjusted to that you got to go further.
Get more, yeah.
In order to achieve what you just achieved. And in the process, you're destroying your body. And you see, this is why I don't like y'all, man. I'm trying to wrap this up. And that's why I say in church, I'm not your drug dealer. Because you got high on Sunday and now you can't go through the rest of the week. You done had the high, but you don't know how to internalize what you had to get you to where you need to get to.
Yeah.
No. Right. And all of a sudden you coming back on Sunday like this.
Yep. I can't function without, because I don't have nothing to sustain
No.
myself.
Let me get it all out. Because, I can't. I don't want to look. Where pastor at?
Ooh.
Because it's true. Look, you laughing, but it's true. Where pastor at? I don't know this person.
Yeah, that's so real.
It's
That's
real.
so real.
Everybody scratching. Where pastor at? Pastor need to go out of town and leave y'all for a second. What you gonna do? Well, I gotta go somewhere. And get, because I don't trust their stuff.
Yep.
I need something to get me up. No, that's not what this is, man.
I sure is hungry.
I'm gonna get you sucker references now. Wow. One rib. Yeah. One?
You got change for
100. I mean, what are we doing? But that is what we dealing with. Spiritually speaking, a lot of people just want to get high.
Yeah.
No. You're supposed to take the experience and it becomes something
That
real.
changes you.
Woo.
Actually changes you, not just for 15 minutes.
But it got to take you somewhere,
Yeah.
man. I don't get up on Sunday to entertain and get folk high. I had to dwell with this thing for a minute.
Yeah.
And I had to deal with this thing for a minute. Because something about this text, something about the experience, something about the encounter is changing me.
Yeah.
Let me prove. Yes.
I mean, if you think about it, if it gets you high for 15 minutes, how are you supposed to take that feeling and spread it to others to bring them into the fold? Because it's already left you as soon as you leave.
I mean,
The
you
church or
didn't put
wherever,
in on this, man.
It's gone.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to spread it along every day, a little bit every day.
But maybe that's why we don't share well.
got 5 on cheese.
Yeah. That maybe that's why though. Like, because if you didn't put in on this, I don't want to share it with you because I'm thinking that I've only got so much of this. It's only gonna make me feel so good for so long. Yep. And yep. Jonesing.
I can't take you to my dealer.
Yep. Exactly.
So let me because it's only a good because we got to go, but it's only good if you leave a cliffhanger. I don't know if we'll deal with this next week, but if you ever wanted to find out how effective or non-effective your evangelistic witness is, all you got to do is find out and sit around long enough to discover whether or not people are really have come together just to get high together or to experience something that they can take somewhere so other people can really know what it is to be transformed by the power of God.
Yeah.
Evangelism comes out of experiences. Evangelism doesn't come from you talking about where you just got your last hit.
Right. And if we slow down, and we can actually know what that experience is trying to be, we can internalize it, we can process it, and then we know when to share it with folks and the way it needs to be shared with folks because we have slowed down enough to actually figure out what's happening.
Yes. And on that note, I don't know if we come back to it, but it sounds like we might come around this again.
Oh, yeah.
So I thank you for being on tonight. And as always, the conversation is rich. Everything is rich. Share this with somebody, and I pray that you process this thing and internalize it so that when it's time, you can help somebody else with it. So may the Lord bless you real good until we meet again. And that's the prayer of tonight. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you. We'll see you on Sunday at 10 a.m.